You don't know anything about music. Who are you trying to kid? Some saxophone oracle.
Stop trying to diminish me, Arthur. You're being so mean.
I'm only half diminishing you. You have no idea just how mean I can be, mister.
Hey everyone, I'm the Saxophone Oracle. This week we're talking about minor 7 flat 5 chords, also known as half diminished chords. Now minor 7 flat 5 chords, they tend to confuse and overwhelm the beginner and intermediate improviser. I'm sure many of you are filled with a sense of panic when you're reading your music and along comes one of these two chord symbols. I know this because I wasn't always the Saxophone Oracle. Yes, it's true. When I was starting out, minor 7 flat 5 chords confused and frightened me. I was terrified when I'd see a half diminished chord coming along in my music because I didn't know what to do with it or what to play over it. Today, we're going to take a deeper look at the minor 7 flat 5 chord. I'm going to show you that there's absolutely nothing complicated about them and there's nothing to fear. And we're going to look at several different kinds of scales that we can play over these chords. So what is a half diminished or a minor 7 flat 5 chord? Well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. So let's start by taking a look at a regular minor 7 chord. We'll look at E minor, and we have E, G is the minor 3rd, B is the 5th, D is the 7th. So if we have a minor 7 flat 5 chord, we're going to flat the 5th. So that B is going to become a B flat. So E, G, B flat, D. And where do we find minor 7 flat 5 chords 99% of the time when we come across them in music? Well, they're usually two chords in a minor tonality. We'll see them in a 2-5-1. So let's take D minor for instance. The 2 would be E, and we'd have an E minor 7 flat 5, going to A7, and then resolving to home bass D minor. So far, so good. Typically, a half diminished chord is the 2 chord in a 2-5-1. It's a predominant chord that sets us up for the 5 and takes us back to 1. Now, just for an instance, let's remove the root from the 2 chord. So we're going to eliminate the E, and we're left with a G minor triad, G, B flat, D. Now, just cause, we'll make it a G minor 7 chord, G, B flat, D, F. Now, what is G minor in relation to D minor? Well, it's the 4 chord, and in fancy theoretical terms, we would call it the subdominant chord. And the function of a subdominant chord is a predominant. It sets us up for the 5 chord to 1. So just like 2-5-1, we have 4 minor, 5-7, 1. I bring this up because I want to look at the jazz standard repertoire for a moment. So jazz standards, the tunes that have all been adopted by jazz players that we use to improvise over, they come by and large from the Great American Songbook. So these are songs written for Broadway shows and things like that by great composers, George Gershwin, Jerome Kern, Jimmy Van Heusen, Cole Porter, the likes of them. But if we go to the scores of these tunes that they actually wrote, we don't see half diminished chords almost anywhere because they didn't use them. They used 4 minor, dominant 7, 1. Here I have a book of original Cole Porter piano scores. So what we're going to do is take a look at 3 extremely common jazz standards that we play and see what Cole Porter actually wrote. The first one is a tune called I Love You. Almost everyone has played this if you're a jazz musician. And what jazz musicians play is in the first bar, 2 minor 7 flat 5, going to 5 dominant, going to 1 major. Now let's look at what Cole Porter wrote. 4 minor 7, going to 5 dominant, going to 1 major. The second example is a song called You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To. I'm sure you have all heard this if you haven't played it. And when jazz musicians play it, they play 1, 2 minor 7 flat 5, going to the dominant chord, going to 1, right? 1, 2, 5, 1. Well, what did Cole Porter write? He wrote 1, 4 minor 7, 5, 1. And the final example, the great jazz standard, I Love Paris. Once again, we see Cole Porter uses 4 minor, 5 dominant to 1. There you have it. The composers weren't writing 2 minor 7 flat 5. They were writing 4 minor 7 chords. And what scale would go over a 4 minor 7? Well, the Dorian scale. So G, A, B flat, D, E natural, And what jazz musicians did was they took that E natural and they threw it underneath as a bass note because it gave a 2-5 chord function. It made everything move by fifths, 2-5-1. Anyone who spent any time with jazz musicians know jazz musicians are freaks about 2-5-1s. 2-5-1 this, 2-5-1 that, patterns, licks, and they love it when the chords move by fifth. So 2-5-1-4, 6-2-5-1-4, etc. It makes sense. It's a great sound and it's really clear to hear as the chords change. But the original chord was not a minor 7 flat 5 chord. It was the 4 minor chord. When a minor 7 flat 5 chord comes along in our music, that's frightening enough. But then you add in the jazz police, yes, the academics, they came along and they proposed that we have the scale that goes with the chord. And they say the scale is the Locrian scale. Okay? How frightening is that? What is a Locrian scale? Who knows what a Locrian scale is? Now sure, if we know music theory, the Locrian scale is the 7th degree of the major scale. So the major scale starting on 7. But who of us have that right there in our heads, have it at recall, have it under our fingers? Oh, the Locrian scale comes up now, right? Almost no one. But the Locrian scale comes from the major scale, and there's all the other modes of the major scale, like the Dorian mode, which we do know because we're always practicing our minor scales and we're always applying the Dorian mode in songs like So What, Impressions, Little Sunflower, Cantaloupe Island. I don't know about you, but when I clued into that as a young musician, light bulbs went off and I started making all kinds of connections and things started to make sense. Now sure, the Locrian scale is the correct scale, but isn't it way simpler to think of it as a Dorian scale? G Dorian, going to A7, going to D minor. If that isn't enough, the academics propose another scale we could play, and they call it the Super Locrian scale, right? So as if Locrian isn't obscure enough, let's call it the Super Locrian, and let's really make ourselves seem important. But what is a Super Locrian scale? It's the same thing as a Locrian scale. Instead of the flat 2, though, we play the natural 2. What scale is this also? It's G melodic minor. The melodic minor scale ascending. Jazz melodic minor, another scale that almost everyone has under their fingertips. So wouldn't it be a lot easier to think of G melodic minor instead of a Super Locrian scale whenever you come across this chord symbol? I know many of you are thinking, wow, Oracle, thanks, that makes so much sense. But you know, when the music is coming by really fast and I see that minor 7 flat 5 chord coming, now I have to think, well, what is the actual minor 7 chord it is? And it's just too much information for me. I'm never going to be able to deal with it. Yes, I understand that because like you, I was there. And don't worry, if you start recognizing this, it will start to come automatically. But in the meantime, when you see E minor 7 flat 5 in your music, take your pencil, cross it out and put G minor 7 over top. If you see D minor 7 flat 5, take a moment, put F minor 7. It's going to make your life so much easier. Now that we know it's just a minor 7 chord and we would typically play a Dorian scale over it, it opens the whole world of other scale options that we can use that are already under our fingers. For example, if we play a 2-5-1 in F major, we would play G minor 7, we would play C7 to F major. So if G minor 7 works, the Dorian scale works, so does C mixolydian. That's a great scale to play over E minor 7 flat 5. And if C mixolydian works, how about C mixolydian passing tone? And if we're going to go passing tone scales, how about G Dorian passing tone scale? Right? We can go G, A, B flat, C, D, throw a passing tone in between D and E, so D sharp, E, F, G. We can do the same thing, make a melodic minor passing tone scale. G, A, B flat, C, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G. It's endless. I don't know if those of you have seen it, but not long ago I made a video about the pentatonic scales that we could play, the different options of pentatonic scales that we can play over a minor 7 chord. So if you go back and check out that video over here, there's a whole other list of options that you could play over this E minor 7 flat 5 chord. Obviously, we don't all absorb information the same way. So perhaps it's more confusing for you to think of it as a 4 minor 7 chord rather than a 2 half diminished. But the point is we can look at these musical problems in different ways and find a way that makes sense to us. So I think of it as a 4 minor 7 chord, therefore a Dorian scale, and that opens up 10 other scales that I can think of off the top of my head. There are probably 20 and 30 if we just spend a little bit of time thinking about it. Now let's listen to some examples. I have two backing tracks. One is a concert E minor 7 flat 5 loop over and over again, so C sharp minor 7 flat 5 for alto saxophone. And I'm going to go through each of these scales, how it sounds just over that chord itself, and then we're going to put it into context. I have a loop of 2, 5, 1 in D minor, so for alto sax, C sharp minor 7 flat 5, F sharp 7 to B minor. Here's the Locrian scale. So this is the one we're told to use in jazz education. It works great. This is what it sounds like over E half diminished concert, and then we'll hear it in context of a 2-5-1, E, A, D minor. This is the super Locrian scale. So same scale, but instead of a flat 2, we have the natural 2, and this is what it sounds like over the chord itself and then in context. Now here's the scale that I like to think about when playing over a half diminished chord. This is G Dorian minor. Here we have G melodic minor. This is often referred to as jazz melodic minor, so it's the melodic minor scale ascending. Here's the Mixolydian scale, so C Mixolydian. This is the Mixolydian passing tone scale, C Mixolydian passing tone scale. This is G Dorian passing tone scale, so the passing tone between the 5th and the 6th scale degrees. This is the passing tone scale on G melodic minor, again between scale degrees 5 and 6, just with the melodic minor scale instead of the Dorian scale. Now this is the diminished scale, specifically the whole half diminished scale. We haven't talked about this one yet, but this is a fantastic option of something to play over a half diminished chord. So it has the root, it has the flat third, it has the flat 5. It doesn't have the flat 7, but it's a symmetrical scale. So it really sounds good and really sounds strong, even though it doesn't fit the chord perfectly. It's a great scale to run up and down the chord. Now for the final example, and this is something we haven't talked about yet, but if we think about the minor 7 flat 5 chord as a minor 7 chord, we saw we could play the Dorian scale and then we could play the matching Mixolydian scale as if it was a 2-5-1 in F, so G minor 7, C7. Well, if that's the case, then if we have any 2-5 patterns that we like to play in the key of F, so any 2-5 patterns over G minor 7, C7, we can play those over top of the 2 minor 7 flat 5 chord, and they're going to sound really strong. So here's a few examples of that. I'm the saxophone oracle. We were talking about minor 7 flat 5 chords. I hope now it's a little bit clearer for everyone. As you can see, it's really not that complicated. It's quite simple. We have lots of great options that we already have under our fingers that we can play over these chords. I hope you found the information useful. I hope you found it helpful. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. That really helps me out. I love to hear from you, so drop a comment below, shoot me an email. Maybe I can address it in a future video. Thank you so much for continuing to watch. I wish you a great week. Happy practicing. See you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.